created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Hello, hi everybody. I would like to welcome you to our biochemistry class. Please. And I just noticed that I was in mute, so the last 10 seconds, no one could hear anything. So I was just telling that, thank you very much, Katia. We have just opened today biochemistry class with a very nice interpretation of Seven Crudele, also one of the most beautiful pieces of music that has been written in the history of music. And you may have noticed that I have shared with you on the screen a couple of the exercises on this biochemistry class, which I want to say now that I am kidding. It is not biochemistry. It is something even more difficult than that. We are about to talk something that I would also like to call the multiverse of singing. Now that everything is a multiverse, thanks to Marvel Studios. Now we have a multiverse where singers, and you are about to realize about it, singers like, or people in music like to use words that refer to a world that can be hardly described. So we will talk about the voice in terms of something like looks like food when we will talk about the pasta. We will talk about singing in terms that looks more like the singing of a bird when we will talk about the trino. And we will talk about the sound of a campanella, of a bell, when we talk about the squillo. But we will get there. Just wait. So I wanted to give this somehow of an introduction, because it is true that many singers like to talk in using these words, like only for other singers or people specialized in music can understand. And you will soon realize that they are very difficult to explain. So thanks to the voice of Katia, we will provide you audio examples of what we are trying to explain. And for that, and you know that I like anecdotes a lot, I am going to start this presentation with an anecdote. I had I think one of the most interesting conversations that I have had with another singer. He was a tenor at the Palacio de Bellas Artes, and I had the chance of having a very nice coffee and a very good conversation with him. And he was telling me that he was tired of many things, of which I am going to take only one for this anecdote, because there are many that are worth keeping for other programs. But one of the things that he shared me is that he was tired of having had music singing teachers who told him, no, this note, and I am going to use the word in Spanish, es redonda. La voz se tiene que escuchar redonda, which redonda means in English round. So he told me, and how does she know that I understand what is a rounded voice? For me, rounded means absolutely nothing, because maybe, and when she explains me, for me, that means green. And when she says that it has to be seco, for me, it means something different. So the use of all these words make us think of many things, and most of the times not about singing itself. But sometimes it can be funny. So why don't we start with that one, that when I was thinking on how to explain the pasta, the only thing I could think of was of pizzas. and maybe some of you may realize about that. And when we talk about this very famous pasta, which I am putting now on the screen, when we talk about the pasta of a voice, there is no easy way to explain it. Because if you don't have a refined ear, or you don't pay that much attention, you may think that pasta refers to the volume, or how tough or how big the voice is, and that is not what we are talking about when we say that a voice has pasta. It has this certain, and I am going to confuse you a little more, because the voice has texture. How do you explain that a voice has texture? But a voice that has a given texture, or even more complicated, a given body, that when you say, the voice of Renata Scotto has a lot of pasta, like it has a lot of body, like it has a lot of texture. But when you talk of a voice like Nathalie Dessay, you say Nathalie Dessay does not have much pasta in her voice. So and some people say, okay, give me another example. Juan Diego Flores, is Juan, or I am adding another name? Well, the Peruvian tenor, his voice is very white. His voice does not have much pasta, to be sincere. If you listen to Mario del Monaco, that is huge pasta. The voice, the voice he has is just enormous. So this term pasta is used a lot to try to provide an explanation of what the voice of a singer actually has or does have not. The interesting part here is that you may realize when you listen to a given singer that he may play with his pasta or take out all of the pasta. And now I am going to refer to the very, very famous pianissimi by Montserrat Caballé. Because I recall her in an interview, she was explaining, because the interviewer asked her, so how is it that you manage this magnificent pianissimi? And she said, it is very simple. You use, or you have the same technique as when you are going to sing something full voice. The only thing that you take away is the pasta. So I hope you understood, but that's the explanation Montserrat Caballé provides for singing a pianissimi. Full voice, but take out all the body of the voice, and that turns out to be a pianissimi. So this pasta, sometimes I will provide you with an example at the end of today's program on how singers, when they know how to manage that pasta of the natural texture of their voice, can give a different, can help in providing much more sense to the interpretation. Sometimes you may feel like the singer is using his voice like it was lighter than it actually is. That means that your singer is taking out all the pasta. And then you listen to his voice again complete, then he's bringing the pasta back. More or less complicated to explain, much more complicated to sing. I will not be providing an example of that, because now I would like to jump to another word. Well, I hope that term of pasta was not that complicated. And let's jump for the second term that I would like to share with you, which is the fiato. And now the fiato, that of course it's again in Italian. Now it has to do with the breath. And a lesson in breathing for a singer could take not even days, not even weeks, but months or maybe years, right? Because when you say that you're teaching a singer how to sing, the easiest way to do it is when you think of a very long note, because we have mentioned in the past that people like listening to long notes by the singer, to know that their preferred singer is powerful. So they like to listen to long notes. You may recall Con te partirò, which Andrea Bocelli and Sarah Brightman made very famous almost 20 years ago, if I remember well, around. Yeah, we are not that young. So maybe nobody knows what the whole tune of the song is about, but everybody remembers that there is a long note at the end, right? I'm not sure. I think the last expression is con te or something like that. Yeah, it's con te, right? No, partirò. Yeah. And so, because people like to see it as an example of power, but I was also sharing with Katia prior to this program that in fact the fiato is not only for keeping the high notes. In the case of hers, as she does lots of coloratura, she needs a perfect breathing machine, which is her diaphragm and lungs, because she really knows that after playing with her voice, a microsecond of breathing, and then why don't you share us a little about how the coloraturas and the fiato are closely related?
Okay. Hallelujah.
So you may have realized that she had a breath almost imperceptible to most of mortals, but there is a very simple reason. We are humans and we need to breathe.
You need air.
Yeah,
Like
this is something that we have mentioned in the past. Composers are not very aware of, but the singers that they are writing for are actually humans, so they need to take breath somewhere. So the singer may decide where he steals a small piece of the music there, just to take a quick breath and continue. So it may be at the end of a phrase or at the beginning of another, maybe try to slow down, breathe, and immediately follows. And he says, oh, here there is an attack, so I can make a pause, so there is abbreviation. And you always look for ways to breathe, because the composer
it's
never
a kind of puzzle.
never makes that favor to you. And sometimes you are singing out very loud, and the music just doesn't stop, so you need to say, where am I going to breathe? And for a singer, it is very important, and singers, when they have a very good control of their fiato, they pass this sense of, I would say, calmness to the public, because they know that the singer will go on with the music, even if there are long phrases, even if it is too fast, even if it's too loud, the singer will always know where to take breath. Opposite, and I was also sharing with Katia prior to this program, and please forgive me, you are one of those singers, but I really don't like, personally, I don't like it when singers like to keep the final note for long and end up like let's take the conto, instead of ceasing the note correctly like that, you just stop their breath. They go like something like that, like making, I really don't know how even how to explain it, but I think that it is because they have gone well beyond what their actual resources can actually do. So there is stop one time before you run out of breath, instead of giving that sensation of The singer almost suffocated on the stage, but he achieved another another second of that note. So a nice, beautiful note will always be appreciated by the public. But now it is also time to talk about Katya's expertise. And I was mentioning you before that now we were talking about the voice in terms of a verbs, because the trino, which in English is called a trill, in fact makes reference to those beautiful singing birds, and that's where the soprano said, "Hey, I can do something about it." Why don't you? You had explained this in the previous programs a little about what a trine is. Why don't you share another quick explanation on what is a trino, if the technique is actually hard, difficult?
Well, since my point of view, it depends. It's an ornament that depends on the agility and on how light a voice is. I think that a light and a high voice can sound like a bird, just like you just mentioned. It's the execution, the rapid execution of two notes, and both of them must be heard, must be clear. Because when we talk about vibrato, it's just a note that vibrates. And it's vibrating, but it's a single note. In the case of a trino, you must notice the both of the notes that I'm singing.
And also, I think that it is important to mention that we have, mostly sopranos sing these trills, these trinos, some male voices, not all of them. I will talk a little about more in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to mention that once a soprano has or really works well with these trinos, you don't go immediately for the two notes between each other, but you sometimes take one, keep that for a little longer, and then go to the vibration between the two notes, because that is more effective. Like you just did it, like, oh, you don't go oh immediately, you go oh. And sometimes you go high, but there are singers that take it from the lower note and then keep it for a sec and then go to singing both,
yes.
Right?
It has to do with the period of the piece we are working on. It has to do with the style. Like we just saw in our image a few minutes ago when we started with the chemistry class. Well, ornaments and music has experienced changes a long of time. So in Baroque period, for example, trinos were understood in a very different way. I was preparing Persephone and Sylvia from Orfeo by Monteverdi, and some trinos have to be executed as the same note. You start in a slow time, and it increases. Like you just said, you can attack your trino from above, from the lower note, and I think that as music allows you to, you have to prepare it, announcing the both notes you're gonna sing. Because I feel you can prepare yourself, but you can't prepare your public on what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and I have to say that you forgot to mention another of the considerations for these trinos, the singer's ego. The singer may choose to do it one way or another, or keep it for longer than necessary, just because she knows that her trills are great, right? Let's
Just
be
because
sincere.
we can.
Just because you can, right?
That's the truth of it.
And I wanted to mention about the I was saying, and as Katia also stated very correctly, it is usually mostly heard what we call white voices, most of them female voices. So there are also white voices, and of course, voices do not have a color because sound doesn't have a color. Please forgive singers for that, but that's that's what it's usually called. So a white voice like Flores' voice, which is very white, he can easily sing a trino. But for a voice like Corelli's, that huge voice, by the way, he could sing trinos. But of course, with that immense voice that he had, it doesn't sound as clear and as nice as it does with a white female voice. But we were also mentioning, Katia, when we were preparing this, that please, singers, do not take it as an excuse for not working on your coloratura. Because I'm sure you have met many singers that say, I am a lyrical soprano, I am a lyrical tenor, I don't need to work on a trill. Why should I work on coloraturas? You have to do it basically because you need to know how to do it. It doesn't mean that you will have a performance singing the Conte Almaviva on the stage. Maybe you will never do. But when you find a score that has a difficult passage, a difficult jump between two notes, you will be attacking it very easily because now you're used to do that because the coloratura has told you so. Would you like to add something
Of course.
to that?
Yes. For example, in Vivid Zoom from Stabat Mater by Pergolesi, there is a passaggio where you have to say and you're not making a virtuosistic aria by Mozart, but you have to be prepared by style to be able to sing a trillo. I understand some ornaments and some skills as making exercise. You don't go to the gym and work arm only and exclusively because I don't know. You must train your arms, your shoulder, your back, your legs. So it's part of your voice, it's part of singing. So it's necessary to train as much as possible any kind of ornament.
Yes, and to continue talking about ornaments, now let's talk about the mordente, which is a very funny word. If you happen to know that mordente in Spanish has to do with actually biting, so morder. So how did we end up using a word of someone using his mouth to eat or to choose something into an ornament sung by singers? Don't ask me how we. Maybe somebody heard the quality of the sound and said, oh, it's like if somebody was eating something. I really don't know how we ended up using mordente, but why don't you share us a little about these mordentes? What are those? And maybe if you have an example, would be much better.
Well, for me, it's just to think about a main note that moves fast to a higher or a lower note and returns. It changed by periods too, but this is the way we understand mordente nowadays. Ah, 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 ah.
And that is a very useful and a very nice ornament to give a variety or to give a to work on the impression or the emphasis of a given word or syllable. And it is also, I think, it can be a very delicate ornament that also we have no excuse to, if our voice is not white and of a female, you still can work on trying to do some of these effects on the voice, because otherwise your singing always sounds plain, you know. Yeah, like that, like you end up being a singer with very little artifacts, or your arsenal, as I call it. You have so very few artifacts in your hand that after 2 or 3 times that someone has heard you sing, they have heard it all.
Yeah, and I think that something to consider is that you can always make it part of your voice, thinking of your skills as how fast can you do it, and don't pressure yourself. You can start in a very slow velocity, like we were talking about the trino. We can apply it to the mordente too. Feel comfortable with your work, and then you can increase your speed.